This episode contains mature themes. AI technology is used to enhance the listening experience. Listener discretion is advised. In the winter of 1872, a lonely merchant ship drifted silently across the Atlantic. Its sails were torn but serviceable, its cargo untouched, its charts open on the captain's desk. When the crew of a passing vessel boarded to investigate, they found no signs of violence or struggle. Food sat in place, personal belongings were undisturbed, but the silence was deafening. Every person on board the Mary Celeste, including men, women, and a 2-year-old child, had vanished without a trace. Welcome to 3 Theories, the podcast where we uncover the great mysteries of the world. I'm Elena Hart, your guide on this journey through the unknown. Each episode will examine unsolved cases, paranormal phenomena, and historical and natural mysteries, and explore 3 compelling theories to help you decide, what do you believe? The Mary Celeste left New York Harbor on November 7th, 1872, bound for Genoa, Italy. She was a sturdy brigantine with a clean record, well-manned, well-provisioned, and commanded by Captain Benjamin Briggs, a disciplined sailor known for caution more than risk. His wife Sarah and their young daughter Sophia sailed with him, along with 7 crew members Briggs had personally selected for their reliability. The ship wasn't just staffed. It was entrusted to people Briggs respected, men who knew the rhythm of the sea and had weathered its unpredictable moods. Their cargo? Over 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol, tightly sealed and carefully stored. Nothing unusual, nothing dangerous, at least on paper. The barrels were packed below deck in a way that reflected Briggs's meticulous nature, stacked and braced against heavy movement. Everything about the vessel, from her provisions to her logbooks, hinted at a voyage planned with precision. For nearly a month, the ship made steady progress across the Atlantic. Log entries indicated routine weather, minor squalls, nothing that should have forced an evacuation. In the final days, the handwriting remained calm, controlled. Nothing suggested fear. No rushed script, no frantic notes, no mention of mechanical failure or crew unrest. The entries read like any ordinary voyage, a steady pulse of nautical life in the open ocean. Then, sometime between late November and early December, the Mary Celeste entered a patch of ocean no one on board ever escaped. Whatever happened in that stretch of water left no trace in the logbook, no final message, no clue from Briggs, only silence. On December 4th, 1872, the British brig Dei Gratia spotted her drifting erratically about 400 miles east of the Azores. Her sails were partly set but loose, flapping in uneven winds. She wasn't in immediate danger, just moving strangely, as if someone had abandoned the wheel minutes earlier. There was no distress signal, no attempt to attract attention, just a lone ship wandering aimlessly in the open sea. Captain Morehouse of the Dei Gratia watched the ship through his spyglass. He had crossed paths with Briggs before. He knew his habits. Something felt wrong. A vessel moving like that, untethered to any direction, slowing and quickening without pattern, usually meant trouble. But the Mary Celeste didn't look wrecked. She looked paused. He sent a boarding party. The men climbed onto the Mary Celeste, expecting bodies, storm casualties, perhaps a sick crew, maybe the aftermath of a fight. Instead, they found the ship completely intact. The cargo was secured. Supplies were plentiful. The crew's clothing hung neatly in their quarters. Briggs's navigation tools sat properly arranged. The galley was stocked and orderly, everything cleaned and stowed as if the routine had simply stopped. The lamps still held oil. Food supplies were abundant and well preserved. Everything about the ship indicated life, yet there was none. What struck them most was the quiet. No rats, no animals, no human sound, just the distant creak of rope against mast. It was a silence that didn't feel natural, a stillness that seemed too complete, as if the ship had been sealed in its final moment. Below deck, one of the sailors touched the walls and felt dampness, not from flooding, but from condensation, as if the ship had been left closed for days. The lifeboat was missing. A single hull-mounted pump was dismantled, and the ship's chronometer and sextant were gone, possibly taken intentionally. It suggested decision, action, planning, but it didn't explain the absence of every living person. They searched again. Nothing disturbed, nothing stolen, nothing damaged, no hidden compartments, no signs of illness, no notes left behind. Just the quiet shape of a ship waiting for answers it would never give. Except, the last log entry didn't match the scene. It was calm, routine. There was no hint of distress, no warning of a problem that would force a captain to evacuate his family and crew into an open boat hundreds of miles from land. No cryptic message, no weather concerns, nothing extraordinary at all. Whatever happened, it happened fast. Some believe Briggs may have stood at the rail that final night. The sea quieter than usual, the wind soft but untrustworthy. Perhaps he smelled something strange, an acrid chemical scent rising from the cargo hold. Maybe he heard a muffled thump, or felt a subtle tremor beneath his feet. The kind that makes a captain consider everything he's responsible for. His ship, his family, his crew. Something that tells him instinctively, without evidence, that danger is building where he can't yet see it. The ocean at night can feel vast and unforgiving, a black surface hiding things that move just out of sight. Maybe Briggs sensed something in that darkness, a shift in the air, a tension in the silence, a creeping certainty that the ship itself was no longer safe. A moment where instinct overrides logic. We will never know what they saw, heard, or felt. We only know they left and never returned. The Mary Celeste continued drifting, carrying no voices, no footsteps, no answers. Only the lingering question of what could make an experienced captain abandon a perfectly seaworthy vessel without signaling distress. The ship floated alone under a blank sky, her story cut off mid-sentence. And that is where the mystery opens, because every theory that came after tries to fill a silence deeper than the ocean itself. The first and most widely accepted theory is that Captain Briggs made a tragic but understandable mistake. The argument centers on a cluster of natural explanations: rough seas, faulty equipment, and fear of imminent danger. Supporters of this theory point out that even an experienced captain can misjudge a threat when the variables stack up quickly and silently at sea, especially in a region known for unpredictable conditions. In that kind of environment, uncertainty can escalate into a decision that feels urgent, even if the danger is only perceived. Investigators noted that one of the ship's pumps was dismantled. If Briggs believed the ship was taking on water, a common worry for wooden vessels, he may have panicked, especially with his family aboard. Some barrels of industrial alcohol had leaked, which could have released fumes. A spark or shift in the cargo could have convinced Briggs the ship might explode. For a captain responsible not just for his crew, but for his wife and young child, even a small threat could have felt magnified in the middle of the Atlantic with no immediate help available. A misinterpreted sound, a sudden odor, or the feeling of heat rising from below deck might have seemed like the first sign of a catastrophe he couldn't afford to ignore. In those moments, instinct often speaks louder than logic. The weather records show the area experienced unstable conditions. Sudden squalls, shifting winds, and rogue waves were not uncommon. A large wave could have soaked the deck and led Briggs to assume worse damage below. If the chronometer malfunctioned, he might have misjudged their position and believed land was closer than it was. And at sea, even a few miles of miscalculation can decide the line between caution and catastrophe. A captain thinking he was making a temporary, controlled choice might have unknowingly set everyone on a path they could not come back from. The margin for error is thin, and the consequences can be irreversible. Under this theory, Briggs ordered everyone into the lifeboat temporarily. The rope securing the boat to the Mary Celeste may have snapped, leaving the crew stranded and helpless as the ship drifted away. A single mistake, a knot slipping, a line fraying, a sudden gust, could have separated the lifeboat from the brig in seconds, leaving the Mary Celeste to continue on without them. Once the distance grew, even a crew of seasoned sailors would have had no realistic chance of catching the vessel again. From that moment, the outcome would have been sealed. It's clean, it's rational, and for many, it's enough. It answers the question of why an evacuation might have happened, even if the decision turned out to be fatal. It offers an explanation rooted in fear, miscalculation, and the unforgiving nature of the sea. It can be comforting to believe the mystery ends there, with a simple chain of errors rather than something stranger. But if that's true, why was the ship in such good condition? Why was there no waterline damage? Why did Briggs take the chronometer and sextant, but leave every other personal item behind? Why didn't anyone drop anchor, signal distress, or attempt to reboard? Why did the final log entry show no sign of urgency? These inconsistencies continue to trouble investigators and enthusiasts alike, decades after the fact. The scenario works on paper, but it leaves a quiet space that facts don't fill. Human error explains a lot, but not the eerie calm the Mary Celeste carried when she was found. Another possibility is foul play. Piracy was rare, but not impossible in 1872. Mutiny, too, remains a viable scenario. At sea, confined quarters and long days can turn small tensions into dangerous fractures, and historians have pointed out that even trusted crews sometimes reached breaking points far from land. The isolation of the open ocean has a way of magnifying small grievances into something sharper. Some believe a crew member snapped under pressure, that someone killed Briggs and the others, staged an evacuation, and attempted escape, only to perish in the lifeboat. Others argue that the crew of the Dei Gratia had motive, financial gain. They stood to profit from salvaging the Mary Celeste, and, suspiciously, they knew Captain Briggs personally. In a time when salvage rights could mean a life-changing payout, the opportunity alone has kept suspicion alive. The idea of a planned takeover, timed and calculated, has lingered in the minds of those who study maritime crimes. But official inquiries found no signs of violence, no blood, no damage, no looting, no disarray in personal quarters. A mutiny that leaves everything untouched strains credibility. Even seasoned investigators noted that the cabins looked almost too orderly, as if no struggle had occurred anywhere on the ship. It was the kind of tidiness that contradicts the chaos foul play usually brings. The absence of disruption became its own unsettling clue. There's another angle, a rogue boarding by outsiders, sailors from another ship, opportunistic criminals who hoped for valuables and abandoned the Mary Celeste when they found none. This theory leans on the idea that the crew left willingly, under threat. A group of armed men forcing a controlled evacuation isn't impossible, especially in remote waters. Desperation often drives people to rash and reckless acts. But again, the scene does not behave like crime. There was no overturned furniture, no panic, no evidence of any intruder. The ship felt paused rather than attacked. Even the smallest details, the placement of tools, the arrangement of clothing, implied a departure made without haste, something that makes the idea of violent coercion harder to accept. Criminals rarely leave a scene cleaner than they found it, and yet the Mary Celeste carried a kind of preserved stillness. Even when stretched to its limits, the criminal theory cannot answer the strangest detail of all. The crew left the ship in a calm state, without packing supplies or water. That simple fact undermines nearly every scenario involving fear or force. It's the single detail investigators keep returning to, again and again, because it refuses to fit into any violent explanation. Anyone fleeing danger would prepare. They would grab clothing, food, weapons, anything. Yet the Mary Celeste's decks suggest a departure that was measured, hesitant, almost gentle. It feels less like people running from a threat and more like people stepping away from something they didn't fully understand. A decision made in confusion or curiosity rather than terror. Crime explains motivation, but not the quietness that followed. Still, some say the truth isn't in violence or chaos, but in something older than either. The final theory steps beyond documented cause and into the realm of the uncanny. The possibility that the Mary Celeste encountered something inexplicable. It's the kind of explanation people reach for when everything sensible collapses under the weight of unanswered questions. When every practical scenario frays at the edges, people start looking toward the things sailors have whispered about for centuries. Throughout maritime history, sailors reported anomalies. Sudden bands of fog with electrical charge, strange lights rising from the water, disorienting soundless storms, and eerie undulations in the sea that move without wind. Some ships experienced dead calm zones, where compasses failed and time seemed to slow. These weren't stories told for entertainment. They were logged by experienced sailors who had nothing to gain by inventing them. The ocean has always held phenomena that defy easy classification, and those who spent their lives on it often described moments that left them shaken without knowing why. Witnesses near the Azores later claimed to have seen floating lights at night during that same month, glows hovering above the water before sinking below. Reports of luminous mist were documented in logs from nearby vessels. These sightings weren't wildly embellished. They were brief notes, matter-of-fact and unsettling precisely because of their simplicity. They read like the observations of people trying to describe something they didn't fully understand, but couldn't ignore. The Mary Celeste crossed waters known for seismic activity. Underwater tremors can cause sudden gas eruptions, a silent burst that displaces oxygen, confuses the senses, or creates the illusion that the sea is shifting beneath a ship. Some sailors describe these events as the ocean breathing, rising and falling unnaturally, leaving crews terrified. A ship might creak in strange rhythms, the air might thicken, and the deck might feel alive underfoot in ways that push even seasoned sailors toward irrational decisions. In those moments, even level-headed crews have been known to abandon logic. If the crew experienced something like that, an event without sound but with a presence strong enough to rattle them, it could have prompted an evacuation without visible damage. A moment where the world feels wrong, where instinct shouts louder than reason, and where the safest choice seems to be leaving the ship entirely, even if nothing tangible is threatening it. People don't always flee from what they see. Sometimes they flee from what they sense. Others stretch further. Tales of ghosts at sea, strange beings glimpsed in moonlight, and forces sailors were too afraid to name in their logs. The Mary Celeste, in this interpretation, didn't lose its crew to panic or violence, but to the unseen. Something that passed by her hull lingered long enough to unsettle every person aboard, and left without leaving a mark. A presence that touched the ship quietly, in a way that didn't disturb the objects inside, but changed the people instead. And when the Dei Gratia found her drifting under open sky with no living soul aboard, it wasn't a rescue. It was a return. A ship delivered back to the world, emptied and silent. A final note from the sea. Some mysteries don't sink, they wait. Thank you for joining us on this episode of 3 Theories. The disappearance of the Mary Celeste remains one of the most haunting maritime mysteries in history. Was it a tragic miscalculation in rough seas? A crime hidden beneath decades of speculation? Or did the crew encounter something no logbook could ever explain? What do you believe? Visit 3theoriespodcast.com for resources, documents, and additional reading to help you form your own conclusions. Share your thoughts with us on social media and join the conversation. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Join us next time as we investigate another haunting case and present 3 more theories for you to consider. Until then, keep questioning, keep exploring, and remember, sometimes truth is stranger than fiction.